I know you're out there. I can feel you now. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. I'm going to show them a world without you. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you.
Greetings, easily distracted, brainwashed automatons. The chemical deep state is deep and dangerous. We'll start with the monster you know, which is only the tip of the iceberg. Racketeering Monsanto, who got big helping with the Manhattan Project, is killing fish with pesticide runoff.
Look, you can't even tell that there's water there. It's just nothing but heaps of dead fish.
In fact, infecting the whole food supply.
Investigation tested 11 samples of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. 10 out of 11 flavors tested positive for glyphosate, which is the world's most widely used weed killer ingredient. According to scientific reports, rats that consumed very low doses of glyphosate each day showed early signs of fatty liver disease within 3 months. The Food and Drug Administration is responsible for enforcing maximum pesticide residue levels in food, with the exception of glyphosate. A spokesperson for Ben & Jerry said the company is working towards transitioning away from GMOs and trying to understand where glyphosate is coming from.
While brainwashing kids.
Monsanto, there's the Monsanto monorail at Disneyland. There's a Monsanto Epcot Center. Like Monsanto, like it's like Monsanto is literally one of the most greediest companies in the entire world right now. It's like the number one, like we don't care if you eat pesticides in your food. We don't care if you grow a second head by our potatoes, because we genetically modified it and we can make more productivity.
And strong arming governments.
U.S. diplomatic cables released by WikiLeaks revealed the Bush administration drew up ways to retaliate against Europe for refusing to use genetically modified seeds.
Terminator seed plants rape farming independence, leading to mass suicides.
The officials pocket the money intended for the farmer. The poor farmer doesn't get a subsidy, and therefore he cannot recover his loss. The farmer loses hope and ends his life, leaving his family helpless. Since 1995, over 285,000 farmers have committed suicide. In every 30 minutes, a farmer dies.
Especially if the Terminator gene is introduced. So, choice is gone. And what really has bothered me when I heard one of the seed companies state that with the introduction of the Terminator gene, they can contaminate, and then there is no longer choice left. Choice is taken away. This is the whole objective. Choice taken away.
They have poisoned people as the 99% manufacture of PCBs, continuing up till now, despite incredible damage from these pesticides since their inception.
Published last summer in the Journal of the U.S. National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, here is the list of chemicals they measured on the left, and on the right is the percentage of women, both pregnant and non-pregnant, with detectable levels of these pollutants in their bodies. Look at those numbers. Most women in this country are contaminated with heavy metals, a number of toxic solvents, endocrine disruptors, fire-retardant chemicals, PCBs, and pesticides like DDT. And that's just the first page. Continuing on the next page, more pesticides, plastics, chemicals, industrial toxins circulating through their bloodstreams.
They are also the only manufacturer of military-grade white phosphorus.
Eyewitnesses in Syria are claiming U.S.-led coalition forces dropped white phosphorus munitions in the city of Raqqa.
But to give you an idea of what white phosphorus is, it is an offensive weapon that's self-igniting, it burns quickly, and produces an immediate smoke screen. Well, its use is banned in densely populated civilian areas by the Geneva Conventions. The reason why is because the impact is notably catastrophic to the human body. The chemical reportedly causes skin to melt away from the bone.
They experimented with pesticides on prisoners.
Experiments with animals yield findings which can be applied to humans. But these experiments do not tell the whole story, and only suggest how pesticides might affect man. So further studies are continued with human volunteers. These essential studies are based on laboratory findings and animal experiments which greatly reduce the element of risk. Men have been drinking measured amounts of diluted pesticide for several months in this long-range test.
They also took over for Dow Chemical as the leading manufacturer of Agent Orange.
And it did. But it also killed or maimed 400,000 people, and more than 500,000 children have been, and still are, being born with birth defects.
American officials say it doesn't hurt humans or animals or have any lasting effects on soil and vegetation.
They made the bovine growth hormone.
The worst cow in your herd today is the one that got the most BST treatment. Right. The best cow in your herd today is the cow that got none.
Correct.
It's that simple.
Figures don't lie.
Senator Feingold's office.
Russell Feingold was a senator from Wisconsin. He studied the effects of the new hormone and didn't like what he discovered. But what really rankled was the hard-sell tactics of the drug manufacturer, Monsanto, to promote the drug and to stifle critics.
But they fill government pockets to keep the evil alive.
The food giant has donated between $1 and $5 million to the Clinton Foundation. And it has had multiple partnership projects with the Clinton Global Initiative. In 2009, when Hillary Clinton took office as Secretary of State, Monsanto was actively lobbying the State Department for helping promote and open markets for its bioagricultural projects across the globe.
But Dow Chemical is actually worse. Liveris, CEO of Dow Chemical, gave Trump $1 million and Congress $14 million to sell banned pesticides made from Agent Orange and Nazi nerve gas, even though they cause retardation and death.
The EPA made headlines in March when its new chief, Scott Pruitt, rejected the agency's own scientific findings and decided not to ban an insecticide that uses a poisonous chemical despite mounting evidence that the chemical caused learning and memory declines, particularly among farm workers and young children. A month later, as Mother Jones reports, the chemical poisoned a bunch of farm workers who reported vomiting and nausea. But there's one big winner from Scott Pruitt's decision, Dow Chemical, which sells about 5 million pounds of the substance each year. Dow Chemical had donated $1 million to Trump's inauguration fund and most recently sent letters to 3 federal agencies asking them to ignore pesticide studies that say their products threaten endangered species. We don't know how the Trump administration will respond to those letters from Dow Chemical, but their CEO, Andrew Liveris, knows just the man to write to if they run into problems.
Should I give this pen to Andrew? Dow Chemical.
And Trump appointed him as manufacturing advisor to the Commerce Department despite the fact Dow employs price fixing.
He, the Trump administration's top environmental official, met privately with the chief executive of Dow Chemical shortly before reversing his agency's push to ban a widely used pesticide after health studies showed it can harm children.
Dow also created a morning sickness pill that makes retarded flipper babies. They tested dioxin on prisoners, finding it causes cancer and other illness, yet continue to pump it into rivers. They also don't pay taxes.
And thousands of corporations that don't pay any taxes in this country. 1 out of every 6 corporations with 250 million assets or more pay 0 taxes every year in this country. We found that the biggest shock was not just the number of people, and by the way, we name names in this book. We tell you who they are and what they've been up to. This is all based on records that they would hope that you never see.
Their products sterilize and sicken plantation workers. They also killed or maimed 600,000 in a plutonium dust fire through subsidiary Union Carbide.
thousands of people living around the plant were awakened by suffocating, burning effects of the gas. As on the three sides, the UCIL plant was surrounded by slums and other poor settlements. The people living in these colonies were the worst sufferers. Streets began crowded with people running here and there for help. The chaos went on through the night. Local hospitals were soon overwhelmed with the injured, a crisis further compounded by a lack of knowledge of exactly what gas was involved and what its effects were. Within hours, the streets of Bhopal were littered with human corpses and the carcasses of buffaloes, cows, dogs and birds. About 3,000 people died immediately on that night.
They made disintegrating poisoning breast implants and were charged with not testing product. But they tested it on mice with the same results and just didn't care. Before Monsanto took over, they were the only provider of Agent Orange. Dow is also responsible for Napalm B.
It was their most hellish weapon, napalm. The firestorm swept through the village in seconds. A photographer recorded what nobody would like to witness. After all, there were still civilians in the village. A naked, burnt girl, Kim Phuc. That day she celebrated her 9th birthday. Kim Phuc's mother, with her son in her arms, on her way out of the village. The small child does not survive the napalm attack. He dies in the arms of his mother.
They always dismiss lawsuits, even to the 12,000 who sued for being disfigured for life from radioactive accidents. And they continue to make the plutonium triggers for our hydrogen bombs. And sell their pesticides in spite of the high death toll. But again, they're not the worst. Ikfarben, which was the Nazi weapons and gas machine, exits as the top pharmaceutical and chemical companies today. Like Bas, whose Fipronil devastates whole ecosystems.
Where eggs are now being thoroughly examined to see if they contain traces of Fipronil. Farms where the chemical was sprayed have been closed and eggs pulled from stores.
They have poisoned 75% of the American water supply with hexavalent chromium, causing liver failure, kidney failure and stomach cancer. That's 200 million people. And they make the genetically fucked food for Monsanto.
News, BASF and Monsanto announced an expansion of their joint efforts to develop higher yielding and stress-tolerant crops to include wheat. The companies are also increasing their investments in the collaboration, which was established in 2007 and includes corn, soy, cotton, and canola.
Their leadership, like Karl Wurster, were actual Nuremberg trial war criminals, who only got symbolic sentencing because they were rich and went on to lead big chemical and big pharma. So, here's the thing. Ikfarben was half of Standard Oil, now known as Exxon, which created eugenics and funded the Nazi genocide, and American pilots were told not to bomb their Ikfarben weapons and gas bases, prolonging the war until the Russians happened to sack Berlin.
Was a German chemical industry conglomerate, notorious for its role in the Holocaust.
And these companies have run secret government and every president since. In fact, Watergate was unleashed because puppet leader Nixon got off script and started putting tariffs on trade operations. It is Ikfarben that came up with slave concentration camps to create their supply.
Black heavy mud was frequently used for the manure to be used as compost. The ashes from many crematoriums were mixed with this kind of peat and then sown into the fields.
They also made with Exxon the Bilderberg Group. Remember the Kessler Psion?
Hi everyone, I'm Rena Ninen. You're looking at live pictures out of Charlottesville, Virginia. This is where violent clashes have broken out between white nationalists and counter-protests there.
That happened because Virginians has just put together that the 2017 cabinet attendees to the Bilderberg meeting in Virginia had passed legislation making warrants unnecessary for police home invasion. Remember Made in America Day?
And thanks to the leadership of a president who believes in American manufacturing, welcome to Made in America Week.
That was a distraction while the actual warrantless search legislation was passed. Remember the London Bridge terrorist attack?
Those moments coming during the 18 minutes of terror that seemed an eternity. At 9:58 p.m., the attack begins. That white van runs off the road on London Bridge, starts ramming pedestrians.
That was while the actual Bilderberg meeting was happening in Virginia. As the mechanizations of Ig Farben and Exxon Standard Oil secretly plan the next stage in world domination.
John D. Rockefeller, king of Standard Oil. Vilified as a ruthless predator, as evil incarnate, he had created an industrial empire and a personal fortune on a scale the world had never known.
Ig Farben bases itself off of Standard Oil, whose Society of the Elite came to be known as the Council on Foreign Relations. They called themselves by a similar title to the Society of the Elite, the Council of the Gods.
Is Bilderberg really important? Are they really the center of power? Well, we know that there's more secretive meetings. It's just that we don't know specifically where or when or specifically who's in attendance at the more secretive meetings. The Bilderberg meeting is a very important meeting, and it represents a very important group of people. And if you study their membership list, especially going back to their founding days in the post-World War II era, you'll see the continuation of what was once the Nazi regime's IG Farben complex and the military-industrial power base of Western Europe, the United States, and Britain, all converging year after year on some of the most important issues of the day.
So now we'll get to the worst. Bayer. Bayer is Ig Farben today, whose Bayer symbol is actually based off the swastika. Of course, Bayer also developed Agent Orange.
The reason Agent Orange is so dangerous is because of the chemical dioxin. Once in the body, it can hit just about everything, including the nervous, respiratory, and circulatory systems.
Their union with Monsanto means they have joint products, regardless of the European Union banning the monopoly. The Nazi war machine carries on. In terms of world domination, Ig Farben and Standard Oil upset the Jewish banking cartel to themselves become banksters supreme.
IG Farben produced 84% of Germany's explosives, and even the Zyklon B used in the concentration camps to kill millions. One of the unspoken partners of IG Farben was J.D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil Company in America. In fact, the German Air Force could not operate without a special additive patented by Rockefeller's Standard Oil.
They had blood tainted with AIDS that was caught in the US, which they then knowingly sent out to other countries. They are a major reason for the AIDS epidemic.
So hold on. So you're telling me that Bayer knew that this drug was infected with the AIDS virus, they yanked it from the market in America, and then they dumped it in markets overseas?
They had to figure out a way, Joe, to make a profit on a product that they could not sell in America. So they made a huge profit. They dropped the product in Japan, Spain, and France. By the way, Joe, government officials in France that allowed that to happen actually had to go to prison for it. In America, not one corporate executive for this company has been indicted or even criminally investigated.
They also created heroin as a cough syrup. Opium Bayer industry and Exxon oil interests define our wars today. Bayer has also extinguished a large portion of the bee population. They run tests on prisoners, sometimes killing them all, which is nothing new.
But what made Auschwitz the mega death extermination camp was actually the decision by Bayer, Höchst, and BASF to build the largest industrial plant of wartime in Europe. It is called IG Auschwitz, a 100% subsidiary of Bayer, Höchst, and BASF.
Bayer's responsibility for the determination of the numbers of foreign slaves required by the German war machine.
behold, bear. But the interest here is greed, so they are teamed up with the US Israeli Binational Industrial Research and Development, or BIRD. And with the BIRD Foundation, the elite cabal is making the drones, invading your homes, making you sick and treating you with dangerous drugs. This is all well documented in the paste link. Go a little deeper and see how far the rabbit hole goes. We will not forget. We will not forgive. Expect us.